Hello, my friends. In today's podcast, I'm talking to Pete, and we're covering the most important strategies for the first 90 days of onboarding your clients. So if you want to level up your client onboarding game in the first 90 days, this is the episode for you. Let's get started. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. Today, I'm here with Pete Dupuis. What's up, Pete?
I'm back.
You're back. I'm so glad we're getting to record another one. It's been a hot minute. And before we get into today's topic, I just want to do a quick shout out to our Business for Unicorns email list because our emails have really been crushing it lately. And listeners, if you're not on our email list, like, what are you waiting for? You can go to businessforunicorns.com, click on kind of get our gym owner report card, and you can opt into our email list there. And, we send out email every time we release a podcast, which is twice a week. Mark does a dedicated email with it's very short little snippets of actionable tips every week. And then Pete, you do an email every week. Want to talk a little bit about what you usually cover in your emails?
Sure. I have a unofficial target of becoming the Seth Godin of fitness business writing.
You're on your way, my friend.
I love the brevity of that guy's communication style from a blogging standpoint. And somewhere along the line, I sat down to start putting my thoughts into that format. Mm-hmm. And we, ended up with tens of thousands of words. And you guys said, these might make for good emails. And so that's where it ended up. And it seems to be a great avenue through which to deliver the content. So it's everything from marketing to sales strategy, pricing, everything. Anything that comes to mind, I dump that into a document back in the day. And it's been kind of refined over the years.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think, I've been on, I'm sure both of us are on a lot of email lists. And the thing I want to give us props for are ours are short, succinct, and actionable every single time. And so if you're looking for more of that content from us listeners and you're not on our email list yet, just go to our website and opt in because I think it's more than worth it if I do so myself. Yeah. Well, let's dive into today's topic. This topic actually came from a listener who suggested it. Let me pull up my list here to remind myself who said it. It was David Flowers. So thanks for the question, David. And David wanted us to talk more about the 90-day onboarding process for clients. So let's just start off with when you think about brand new clients and the first 90 days of their experience, what are the important milestones you want to make sure they hit? What are the most important experience kind of points that you want them to have in those first few months?
Sure. Well, I think it's a good idea that we identify the differences between our respective operations.
Sure.
Because that 90-day window is a lot different for me than it is for you because my clients aren't signing long-term commitments.
Yep.
And we've over the years gone over why I do that. It's very seasonal in nature what we do here, and pulling people on and off of our EFT was exhausting and confusing. And we've settled into a sweet spot where for us, it made sense to go program by program. And one of the things that I love about that, and some people would hate, is that I need to win my client's business every single month. Mm-hmm. And that's why thinking in 90-day intervals is good, but not great for me. And so we need to be exceptional in the current 30 days and thinking about days 31 to 60. Mm-hmm. And so I think more about what are we going to do to make sure that somewhere between day 20 and 30, we've opened a dialogue about the next month in a way that feels natural and it happens in the flow of conversation on the training floor. And it's a little bit aspirational in nature, the way we talk to our clients, but we're not asking people if they'd like to come back. We're talking to them as if it's a foregone conclusion that they will be coming back.
Great. And so it's a little bit like in sales language, we talk about making a presumptive close. So it's like when you're around 3 months from now, what will you hope you have accomplished, right? That kind of language. Am I getting that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A presumptive close is the best way to put it. Take a presumptive tone about your next week's training material. And the team's good at this in the sense that if you, Michael, were in month 1 with us and you had a decision to make at the end of it, we don't talk about it as if it is even a decision. It's going to happen. Yep. And so the sweet spot in that conversation is mid-week 3 to mid-week 4. It's not when we approach you and say, hey, my notes show you're on the last day of your program. next time I'm going to need some money and I'm going to give you some new material. That doesn't play. Whereas if it's, hey, we're approaching week 4, maybe we're going to scale back the volume a little bit this week, make sure you're feeling good coming into next month. And as it turns out, I've got some ideas about the way I'm going to go with your next program. I've already kind of started mapping it out, but is there anything in particular you want to see in there? Yep. It's not, if you come back, what would you like us to do?
Yep.
It's, I've already got a roadmap, but I welcome your feedback. If I could improve month 2, that's obviously going to happen.
Yep.
And that's why talking about my 90-day plan, it's important. I want them all to be here 900 days, not just 90. But I need to win month number 2. And that is historically the hardest one for us. My business partner, John, always says that. He's like, getting people from assessment to month 1 is the easiest hurdle we'll ever get over. But getting them from month 1 to month 2 is where the work is done for us.
Yeah.
So
well said. And
interesting dynamic.
Yeah, well said. And I think, there's probably a lot of listeners that are just like you that don't have long-term agreements and they have to win the business repeatedly. And I think that's there's a lot of integrity in that I like so much of, and it stresses me out to think about having to do that because that's not what we're used to. But can you just maybe I'm going to keep pulling the thread on that for maybe one more question, which is, in those first 30 days where you're hoping to win their business for another 30 days, what are the experiences they can have as a client that makes it more likely that they're sticking around?
So they first and foremost need to have touch points with every member of the team. Mm-hmm. So it's really important that they not be singularly exposed to one staff member, because as you and I both know, very few of our team members last forever, and that's perfectly fine. But it's really easy for clients to get attached to one personality or coaching style. And we try and nip that in the bud before it even becomes any sort of a discussion point. So day 1 through week 1 is, did they get reps with every team member? Did they have social interactions? Behind closed doors during staff meeting each week, there is a new client update, and the staff member who evaluated that client gives everybody the cheat sheet. So we might say, hey, we evaluated this guy, Michael Keeler, this week. Michael's got a husband named Andrew, just bought a cool new house.
He's a goddamn mess, so look out for it.
Pretty sure he's putting in a hot tub these days. Good conversation point that you might want to hit on the training floor.
Yep.
No significant injury history. I think we're going to see him 3 days a week. And the team's like, all right, cool. And that staff member may say, hey, does anybody have questions about Keeler?
Yep.
And we'd all be like, no, we think we got it. But the team's ready, because the next time they see that person, because we all have access to the schedule, they can tell who's coming in on a given day. They know when new programs are hitting the training floor. So when you come back for day 1, the team's going to see on the marker board in the staff lounge, Michael Keeler, 3 p.m. Here's the staff member who's been assigned to work them through their program. But all of them know, I remember that guy from basically staff meeting the other day. I got my small talk lined up. I know how I'm going to interact with them. I know how I'm going to engage. And the team has already been given kind of all the clues that they need to deliver a meaningful experience that has to happen early. It can't happen in like week 4 while we're trying to convince them to stay. Well, a batch of interns are heading out and the dynamics of the training team are going to change. Like, they need to feel like they have stability in the environment right out of the end of week 1. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, I think that's really, really well said. And honestly, the list of things that you're sharing is not that dissimilar from the things we really try and care about in the first 30 days at MFF. It really isn't. My hot list of most important experiences that I think clients need to have, regardless of the type of gym, is they need to have some small wins. They need to feel like this is a place where they can succeed. They need to have to learn. They have to learn something new and show that they can step outside their comfort zone. This is a safe space to fail. And I did learn something new. I got a little bit better. And that doesn't have to take a month. That can happen in session 1, right? Them showing up and, getting on the bench press for the first time in their life is a win, right? And so small wins is at the top of my list. 2, I think, is making friends.
Yep.
Right. And I'll put this in 2 categories. Making friends, meaning, like you said, getting to know all the staff, not getting connected to just one staff member if we can help it, encouraging them to try out other people, see other approaches, which is a little easier to do in our models than I think it is in some other folks' models, especially if you're one-on-one. That's hard to do. But sure. Making friends with the staff and making friends with other clients. Making sure that we're doing a good job of being like, hey, did you meet Susie? She's also a nurse. Or, hey, did you meet so-and-so? They also just started this last week. that friend making gives them a sense like, oh, we can belong here. This is a place that can be like my fitness home. These are my people. This is my community, right? It gives a sense of belonging. That's so critical. I think the other thing that needs to happen in the first few months, and I know you all do a great job of this too, is that if they're not showing up, they need to be followed up with. Right? There needs to be someone catching that this person just signed up and hasn't booked their first session, or they booked their first session or two, but then they kind of disappeared for a week. And if we don't notice right away that they're not around, it becomes very easy for them to believe they're invisible, to think that we really don't give a shit, that they can just kind of disappear and no one notices and no one calls or texts us or emails us. And so I think that kind of part is really critical. The last thing I'll share, and I think this is the place where you and I can probably riff a little more, is they need to learn some of the social cultural norms of your gym, right? They need to learn, at MFF, we want you to bring an extra set of shoes so you're not wearing street shoes in the workout floor. This is, that we only open up maybe 10, 15 minutes before class starts in the morning and after lunch. So you can't come an hour early to hang out in the space. And, we expect you to put your things away neatly in a locker and get ready to come on the floor. This is how you choose the right kettlebell for class. This is where you put things away in our Dragon Lair with the equipment. You need to learn all of those norms for like how to interact with your team. And then of course, like a bunch of policies. How do I cancel? How do I not get charged for a session? Or you get it. There's all these things we have to teach them. And for us, that often comes in the form of both conversation and like an email series and like a client handbook. So there's a lot of getting them indoctrinated into our community that needs to happen. But I think that's our list. I mean, that's a lot, right? But I mean, some of it happens very organically and socially, and some of it is very structured sharing of information. So how do you guys do that last piece? How do you teach people how to like interact with the gym and understand all the norms?
Well, we have a unique culture, and it's obvious. I say that maybe we've talked about this during podcasts in the past, but the way that our gym is laid out, it's designed to showcase the space well when you're introducing someone to it. So when you walk into our space, you need to walk by kind of the chaos. You're in your own lane, but you have a space to enter the gym and see the whole moving organism. And then when you get into the warm-up area, you realize that things slow down a little bit. You can put your stuff down. You can observe all of that from a distance, and you have the space to get your head straight and take care of what you need to take care of as you get ready to transition into that controlled chaos.
Yep.
I think that some of this is just about explaining what you're seeing while it's going on, because there's kind of a day one client journey of sorts where they come in and we tell them, hey, here's how this is going to go. You're going to fill out this paperwork. We're going to step over here into this office. We're going to review your injury history. We're going to talk about your goals, and we're going to get on the same page as far as expectations. And then I'm going to get you out into the gym, and we're going to see how you move. We're going to see if there are any red flags that need to be addressed. And you're going to get a taste of what this place feels like. And that way they're their head's spinning because they come in, they don't know what to expect. Some people are intimidated by the environment. And once we give them that roadmap, it's easier for them to settle into the process. So by the time that they do make the transition from office space to the training room, they'll come in and the coach will say, all right, so here's how this works. You'll notice everyone's carrying around clipboards and pens. They've got programs just like you're going to have on your next visit. First thing we're going to do is head over here. I'll show you where you can toss your stuff. And I'm going to have so-and-so get you warm, which is an opportunity to introduce them to another staff member. This staff member is going to take you through our warm-ups. You might do some foam rolling, some mobility stuff. And they're going to make sure you get handed off to someone who's going to teach you how to do your med ball work. Or you're going to come back over here and we're going to learn how to trap bar deadlift. And basically you get exposures to each dynamic of the space. And one of the things that I think is important to point out that we do that the clients don't know we're doing is we're trying to get them mentally to wrap their head around the idea that the goal is to make them self-sufficient. So we'll say to them, we'll give them little pointers. As you see over there, we've got staff members moving around the med ball area. You're going to earn the right to get into that semi-private format eventually. But for now, we're going to be one-on-one until we know that you're comfortable with the material and you've acclimated to the space and you understand how to read the programs. But we'll get you there. And it wasn't asking them permission to offload them out of the one-on-one format, but instead start talking about it like it's a privilege to get to the point where you are part of this semi-private environment and you've demonstrated competency to us.
Yep.
And so we're planting the seeds for this mindset that someday I'm going to be comfortable in this environment that is not full of endless hand holding.
Yep.
And those type of conversations are really, really important for us because our model isn't scalable. If I have a parent who comes into the desk every single time their kid comes and they say, this is Johnny, who's Johnny working with today? What I want is for Johnny to look at mom and be like, Mom, get out of here. I'm in week 2. I know what I'm doing. You can go wait in the car. And once we've got the kids and the clients or even the adults feeling like they understand that the target is for them to get to a point where I'm not saying so-and-so is going to make sure you're warmed up properly, they kind of pride themselves on getting to a point where they're self-sufficient functioning members of this community. And then they ease right into it. And that ups our capacity because the less clients we have to handhold through all of the basics, the more room I have for more bodies to positively influence the environment and the culture.
Yeah, that's really great explanation, and and shows some of the beauty of your model in particular, right? That is, we do a lot of handholding up front for people to earn the privilege to kind of come and go and be more self-sufficient with people there to help and guide them as needed. But I think it shows the beauty of your model, and also just a really great example of both short-term and long-term expectation setting. Which more and more over the years, I've realized that's really a core part of our job, especially for trainers and coaches, right? That so much of their job is to help people understand what kind of experience and outcomes can you expect now, in a few months, in a few years. And I think the way you described that is such a beautiful example of, I'm going to show you right now how to navigate this room. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do in the next 10 minutes. And I'm going to start planting the seed for the program I'm going to design for you in a month. And I'm also going to talk about how you earn the right, that kind of expectation setting is so important. It just shows people that we're paying attention to you, your individual experience matters, and we have a plan, that we do this all the time. Like, we're taking you through a process here that we are experts in, and you're in good hands, right? Like, it's just so reassuring.
And I want to interject with one more, I'd say, performance training specific piece here, a thought. And if you train primarily youth athletes, what you'll find is that you need to do this kind of conditioning with the parents as well. And you want that to happen off the training floor.
Yeah.
And so the way that we handle this messaging of you're not going to have someone assigned every single time, once again, like everything I've said so far, we're getting ahead of this. So we handle this, we control it with our scheduling. So what we'll say to someone at the end of the initial assessment is, let's get your initial training session on the books, because I want to make sure we know exactly when you're coming, and we have a staff member lined up to coach your son or daughter through this material. And then I'll tell them for the first week or so that they train with us, we're going to schedule this way so that we can be 100% sure that we have the resources ready to take care of your daughter every time she comes through the door. And once she's demonstrated a proficiency to follow the program and she's settled into the environment and we have a certain comfort level, that's when I'm going to email you a link to our online scheduling portal. And you or your daughter can start scheduling her sessions on her cell phone or on your cell phone, however you want. But we want to make sure she doesn't get lost in the shuffle during these early stages. So I'll let you know when it's time to make that jump. And that tends to eliminate the problem of the parent being like, you know what, I don't think she ever needs to go into that semi-private. Let's just keep these semi-private rates and these private client-to-coach ratios.
Well,
we'll just stay there. I like that. So I get ahead of that conversation. And again, it's you earn the right to have the easy scheduling protocols. And I know our objective is not to introduce friction for the client user experience, but this is friction that they appreciate because I'm making them feel like, hey, your daughter is such a unique little snowflake that we need to make sure that there is a staff member ready to walk her from the front desk here to the warm-up area and every step of the process during those first couple of sessions, because I want to make sure we crush it right out of the gate. And the parents get it. And I don't think I've ever had a parent be like, you know what, don't ever send me that scheduling app. I like this format. They like it. They understand it. And it seems to get a message across in a gentle way that doesn't come across as confrontational or like, how do you not understand our semi-private model? I've told you this enough times.
Yeah. Well, I love that so much because I think it's actually a strategy that anyone can use regardless of their model, right? Even listeners, I don't think you need to have Pete's model of this kind of large scale semi-private training to do this, right? I think anyone who is kind of taking care of new clients, if you were the salesperson or you're just kind of the onboarding person at the gym, you can say, I'm going to be the person who helps you schedule your sessions for the first month. And then after that, after I realize that you found a rhythm and you can find your way here on a regular basis, then we're going to let you start booking on your own. But for this first month or so, we're going to do it for you. I think that's a great strategy because then you know when they're coming or not. You know that if they're supposed to come 2 days a week, that they're scheduled for those 2 days a week. And your team can also be prepared because you're the one scheduling them. So you can say, hey, so-and-so, you're going to have so-and-so in your class on this day and this day. Just know this is their first week, right? Or whatever mechanism you need. So I love that strategy because it really does give the hopefully the sense we're just wrapping our arms around you for the first few weeks to make sure you have everything you need to succeed here. And that's amazing service, right? It's amazing service to feel like I'm really being met where I'm at, guided through a process. And then I'll get a little more flexibility and freedom that I'll earn because I've proven that I belong. I've proven that I can do this.
Retain control of some pretty important variables.
Yeah.
One more thing it does, Michael, it allows us some time to get the youth athlete to come out of their shell a little bit and find their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And so when the time does come to move to that online scheduling portal, optimally, us gym owners want the kid to be doing that scheduling.
Sure.
I want to get as far away as possible from the point where the parent holds the keys to that, because we're trying to create, mini adults. Like we're trying to create an environment where these kids are taking ownership of their process. And we're a lot more likely to get the kid to look at their parent and say, no, that should be on my phone. If they've got 2, 3, 4 training sessions under their belt and they feel like, I know the ropes, mom, you don't.
Yeah.
And so we'll have that conversation in front of them at that point. Like, hey, you know what? Now that week 1's in the books, let's talk about getting you on the scheduling app. It can go on either of your phones. We typically suggest the athlete so you have control and you can modify that during the school day if you need to. But you guys let us know what direction you want to go. And I've seen a number of times where the parent says, well, send it to me and we'll figure it out. And the kid is like, no, send it to me.
This
I got
is mine.
this.
Yeah.
But I don't have it on both phones. One person holds the keys to scheduling one athlete's sessions.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty important part to make the athlete feel like they're running this and the parents are paying for it. But, it's what's in the best athlete of the kid.
I think even adults need help gaining, many people, a sense of ownership of their own journey, right? Many people, when it comes to their relationship to their body and to their quote results in fitness, that many of them feel like they have no control. They're just kind of like trying shit and throwing spaghetti against the wall, and they don't have a way of really impacting the outcomes they want. And so giving them some sense of ownership of like, hey, it actually starts with scheduling. You committing and setting the intention to show up 2 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever it is, right, is a really important part of this. So we're going to help you build that habit by doing it with you for a month or so. And then we're going to, let you be on your own. But if you drop the ball and are not showing up, we're going to find you. We're going to remind you that we're here and lovingly bring you back in. That, that's the kind of expectation setting that I think a new person needs.
Yep. Yeah, we do that during week 1. And then we let the app take over with the with the tracking dynamic that you mentioned, the falling off the radar. That's the beautiful thing of these CRMs.
Yeah, a lot of them will do it for you. Yeah.
The nudge if somebody has failed to book for a couple of weeks. But during week 1, we've kind of got a better finger on the pulse of who needs to keep showing up. Yeah. And see, for me, Michael, we're charging for that initial assessment. Like we've discussed in the past, our LBO is a $99 initial assessment.
Yep.
And people feel like they still need to extract value from that initial $99 by investing in month 1.
Yeah.
So it dramatically increases the likelihood of people showing up for that second, third, fourth visit. And that's where we win in week 1.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Same for us. I think almost always our low barrier offer is something paid. Most recently it was a 21-day thing for maybe $79. I forget the exact amount, $49. So I think that makes a big difference. The buy-in you get right on day 1, week 1, to someone who paid something is so different than the buy-in you get from someone who's trying something for free with no skin in the game. I think, it's rare that we're probably going to do any free low barrier offers moving forward, with the exception of maybe something that's like referral, where the person's already so warm. I think you can get away with a free first try. But let's wrap it up with this question, which is, we talked about a lot of things that we think should happen in the first 30, 60, 90 days. And we already talked about one mechanism that is helpful, which is sometimes your CRM can be helpful in tracking attendance and making sure that people are getting an alert when they're not coming. But how else do you keep track of all the other things that should happen? Is there anything else, any tips or tricks you have for our listeners for how else do you make sure people are meeting all the trainers, making friends, having some wins. What do you do to make sure that those kinds of experiences are most likely to happen in their first few months?
I would suggest that you have a team member who's responsible for oversight of the active client roster as a whole.
Mm,
And so in our operation, that's John O'Neill, and he fairly consistently keeps the active client roster in his own kind of Google Sheet
yep.
as a moving document. And for example, we're preparing to send off our in-season training offering. And I said to John, hey, can you make sure that that's as current as possible? Because I need to have my active high school client offer ready to roll and copy written in the next week or so. And he said, yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday mornings. That's what I do. And he is the one who opens staff meeting with that.
Yep.
So he'll typically follow the new client information. So when we run through the earlier conversation of here's who was evaluated and here's what you need to know, he'll typically give us a client update. And he likes to tell us where our active client head count is for all of our three main demos: high school, college, and Gen Pop. Our
Yep.
pro athlete demo is a small one, and it's a very tight window of the year, so it's not quite so important.
Yep.
And he likes to explain to us what the head count is in each of those categories and what the distribution is from a percentage standpoint, because it's usually a pretty good lagging indicator of the direction we're going in our operation.
Sure.
And so I think that he's kind of the guy for that reason, who's really good at maintaining an awareness of the comings and goings of clients and the potential attrition issues that we might have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah,
Yeah,
my advice would be that there be a team member who is kind of the captain of oversight of the client roster as a whole, unless you're a gym that's got the wonderful luck of having, let's say, 350 plus clients.
Yeah.
The MFF unicorns of the world. It's probably a little too much for one staff member.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But I think that's great. And that's, I think, a great solution for most gyms is have someone be accountable for making sure that these folks are going through a process that you've designed and approved. And also training the team to make sure they are giving that first impression that works. They are introducing them to other people. They are talking a little bit about long-term, what their goals are, what their next program is going to look like. So I think that exactly that's a great first step. Yeah, I will say for us, there's a lot of things we try and do in the first 90 days. Things I didn't mention, things like asking for referrals multiple times, asking for a testimonial at some point, asking for a Google review at some point. But there's a lot of extra things we do. So and what I recommend for most gyms is if you have lots of things you're trying to do over the first 30 or 60, 90 days, yes, have someone who's responsible, but put it in a spreadsheet, like John's spreadsheet, right? Just put down who all the new people are, and at the top of the spreadsheet, list all the things you want them to experience, right? And just use it as a little checklist as you go along. And different people, if you do a lot of volume, can be responsible for different parts of the experience. One person can be responsible for making sure they're getting their emails. Another person can be responsible for making sure they're booking. Another person can be responsible for whatever the heck else, make sure they're making friends, right? But I think, designing an experience that includes all the things that really matter to you in your business, and having someone or more than one person be responsible for making sure those things are happening consistently, that accountability where it rests on someone's shoulders to make sure it's happening, I think is the thing we're both going to say is kind of critical here. Because if it's no one's responsible, then it's not going to happen consistently. Someone's really neck has got to be on the line that these 5 things, these 20 things happen in the first 30 days. Someone's got to own it, and there's got to be some transparency that it happened. Yeah.
Agreed.
Anything you would add to this topic as we wrap it up? I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, I think this would be a good future conversation, but there's a big opportunity in understanding the competitive landscape in the conversations with new clients.
Yeah.
Because very rarely do we get people who have had zero exposure to fitness instruction.
Yep.
I mean, I do with my youngest athletes, but every single adult client who's ever come through our doors has an opinion on a prior training experience.
Yeah, that's a
and
good
I had
one.
this conversation on an earlier coaching call with a Unicorn Society member today, where I said, the starting point for understanding your competitive landscape is understanding where your people have come from.
Yeah.
And they've got a volume of information as far as services and price points and what those people do well and don't do well.
Yeah.
And I suggest that everybody have kind of a moving document of where they fall in this potentially blue or red ocean of fitness instruction in their market. And I think that could be an interesting conversation for a future podcast episode.
Yeah, I think we can totally talk about it more. And it's a great thing to add to this checklist of conversations you want to have and experiences you want to create in the first 30, 60, 90 days is ask them where they've been. And they're not at those other places for reasons. And so learning a little bit about why you, and especially if you keep them, why you stay. Yeah. Great idea. Great idea. I'm going to write it down so we can talk about it in a future podcast. But thanks for the great conversation, Pete. Listeners, I hope you had some great takeaways for how you might either start designing or improve your client onboarding experience. We covered a lot of ground here today, but if you have questions about anything we said, just shoot us an email, michael@businessunicorns.com, pete@businessunicorns.com, and go join our email list. Go to our website and join our email list so you can get emails from us on a regular basis that help you continue to grow your gym. Thanks for a great chat, Pete. I'll see you on the next one.
Talk soon, Michael.
Bye.